It's already
You
301.
can come afterwards. Okay, we start. You got a message? We start. Himanshu, would you like to begin?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. We have with us Mr. Anil Sardana. Anil is the Managing Director and CEO of Adani Transmission Ltd. since 1st May 2018. Till 30th April 2018, he was the CEO and Managing Director of Tata Power since 1st February 2011. Till 31st January 2011, beginning August 2007, he was the Managing Director of Tata Teleservices. Prior to telecom's stint, Anil was Executive Director on the board of Tata Power. He was also the founding CEO and MD of Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited, having taken over that capacity when the company was set up in 2002. Anil is credited with having spearheaded the dramatic turnaround of Tata Power Delhi Distribution, having achieved benchmark performance standards, including world record reduction of aggregate technical and commercial losses. Anil also spearheaded two major M&As, namely with NTT Docomo of Japan and a reverse equity swap and merger to create most valuable infrastructure company, Biome, with the highest tenancy in the industry. Anil led the transition of TTSL by launch of Tata Docomo, Tata Photon brands. He also launched several innovative schemes, including pay-per-use and per-second billing. Anil has more than 38 years of experience in the infrastructure space, particularly in the energy and telecom sector, having managed complex transitions, developments, and operations, as well as engineering, procurement, and construction assignments. He holds a degree of Bachelor's in Engineering from Delhi College of Engineering. He also holds a postgraduate degree in Cost Accountancy, ICWAI, and a postgraduate diploma in management, and has attended a top management program at IIM Indore. He received several recognitions in Indian and international fora and was also conferred with Global Alumni Excellence Award by his alma mater, Delhi College of Engineering, in 2012. So, and let's listen to your views.
Okay, before Anil begins, let me tell you that the person speaking right now was Himanshu Rai, the director of IIM Indore. He did not introduce himself.
Himanshu Rai.
I am Bhaskar. I'm the consulting editor of Free Press Journal, and both of us have got together to bring to you this India after COVID series. We believe that the country is going through a difficult time, and the idea is to find out ways in which industry could present to the government some suggestions of how it could become more vibrant, more meaningful, and more relevant to the country. Okay, Anil, your views first.
So thank you both to IIM Indore as well as to Free Press Journal and all the senior colleagues who've joined this webinar. In fact, in the present VUCA times, volatile times, everyone is sitting indoors, everyone is sitting at home, you're enjoying electricity. As long as you don't have interruptions, you certainly have no reasons to really recall the power warriors who are doing a damn good job on ground and facilitating electricity. Very rightly so, we are trying to remember doctors, we're trying to remember all the workers who are supporting the public health problem. But I think it'll be nice for me to also salute all the power warriors who are doing an amazing job and facilitating that the electricity reaches every nook and corner of places, especially the hospitals and the places where people need the most. Well, on this sector, I would say that the basic issue that all of us need to bear in mind is the fact that while nothing much changes in terms of how the sector is governed, but what's been changing is our commitment to the green concepts. What's also been changing is the way the market is going to reorient and treat electricity also like a commodity. And I think these are the two beautiful facets that people are trying to experience and trying to gradually come to terms with. However rudimentary this sector may sound, this certainly will also be uh, gradually touching base with what's been amazing in the era in which we are all living. We are blessed in a way that we have now artificial intelligence, we have IoT, we have virtual reality, we have data analytics, we have all these new concepts which have come in an era where even the rudimentary sector can't just shy itself from having the rub-off effect of the advantage of these things. And I guess that's what is going to change the concept. It's my belief, though of course, when my brief introduction was being taught, I suddenly realized that on 2nd of April, I actually completed 40 years of service period, and I ought to go back and get some of those datas updated. But more important part is in this 4 decades of work that I've put in, what's one seen that this change is not very easy in these kind of sectors, especially because the last mile in the sector, 89% own in state-owned hands. The biggest issue that perhaps many customers don't see the advantage of many changes in a holistic way. Because, either we get swayed to talk about perhaps, T&D losses, the new buzz is now aggregate technical and commercial losses, or we tend to get swayed with specific, which perhaps, undermines the fact that this sector has also gone through a lot of change and needs to undergo much more change. It's my prediction that till such time that I have active life in this sector, we will see that a customer will have choice to buy electricity almost like you buy your airtime. Each meter will be configurable. You will actually be able to source electricity from any generator based on the prices that will be there in the social media or on the website, and you would be able to actually select which power you want to buy: green power, power from hydros, power from a particular source, power in a particular way that your requirements are during the day or during night or during peak hours. There'll be different options that will be there. You will be able to select that. You'll get a pin. You will press that pin on your mobile or on your meter, and there you will be billed that electricity. That time is not very far. It might look very futuristic, but friends, things change very fast, and we will see this in our living lifetime. So that's going to be a very interesting change that we will see, and it will all come via the new concepts that I talked about, that we are all very blessed to see how things are happening. Coming to the current state of affairs, I guess always mind goes to the last mile, which is the distribution business. As far as distribution is concerned, it is in a difficult situation. Most of these state electricity boards, they don't go to regulator with return on equity. With the result, there is a fiscal issue in the way they manage those aspects. We also have a big issue in terms of how cross-subsidy exists. It's a big misnomer vis-a-vis an economic principle in which the industry actually should be paying the least, but it ends up paying the highest, which impacts the economic viability of many industries. In addition, many of you may not have this figure, but this country has anything like close to about 90 gigawatt of captive capacity. That's against 356 or 360 gigawatt of grid capacity. That this 90 gigawatt is either DG sets or standby capacities. And these actually must decay. These must vanish. My own principle and concept is that there should be a clear contract between every customer and distribution company that you ought to provide me 99.9% times. And if you don't, you have to bear the cost of my running a DG set or my running a solar rooftop, or my running a battery or an inverter. That should be the contract. And I guess that's the only way a pull theory can work, in which a distribution company will actually oblige or will meet its obligation, not oblige really, meet its obligation, and a customer will therefore be able to see the benefit of how reliability can actually be delivered in these type of businesses. So, this is just the overall framework. As far as generation and transmission is concerned, we are quite reverse to the global order. You should be mindful of the fact that globally, people have no problem with distribution, because that's the last mile customer business. People manage it very well. Most of the international developed economies have problem in transmission and generation. In India, we have perfected these two by and large. Okay, but we have problem in the last mile, and that's what we have to tide over in the next few years. And I'm sure this change will happen. And be mindful of the fact, when I talked about 89% of this last mile is in state-owned enterprise, the balance 11% is with 4 private big names, and all seem to be doing very well. So within the same country, private companies can do commercially well, technically well, customer services being good in terms of how they are able to deliver solutions. I see no reason why the rest will not change soon. So I'm going to stop here and perhaps look at more questions, but I just want to also make one last point, which is the fact that even in generation, while we all talk about renewables as the new order, and which is very, very in terms of the way renewables is setting in, but I would rather say that we will see soon hydrogen economy displacing many of the conventional concepts, as also many of the renewable concepts. It's already setting itself afoot in terms of fuel cells that people are using in several mobile equipments. There are now trains which are using hydrogen as the fuel option to drive and have the traction. In fact, if the Olympics was to have taken place in the summer this year, which we will see next year now, you will see a whole lot of vehicles, a whole lot of hydrogen empowered and powered mobility and equipments, and which is what will unleash to the world that hydrogen is there to stay. So even on generation concepts, friend, be mindful of the fact that hydrogen is not very far.
Yes.
Okay, we are going to see water unleashing itself into green hydrogen, as also we will have the other parts of hydrogen which will come through different chemical processes. But hydrogen will be one of the benign fuels, and which will be one of the very, very available fuel, which is going to be green, at the same time has calorific value which is equivalent to whatever we have been familiar in terms of gas or oil. So that's the lasting part. Since the subject was energy of the future, I thought I will just put in this last part and end there, and I will look forward to questions from any one of you.
So Anil, the power demand has slumped ever since the COVID-19 pandemic broke out. Now, how long do you think this subdued demand is going to last? That's my first question. And the other part is that what does it really mean to private power companies that have power purchase agreement already in place, but their power is not being taken up?
Okay, so just the two facets. The power demand that has got impacted is in terms of the commercial and industrial segments,
right,
having been put under lockdown. So that's slumped down, and that used to constitute 40-50% of different distribution companies. And the residential demand has gone up, so that's to some extent compensated. But what's happening in this country, since we have subsidized residential customers and subsidizing commercial and industrial customers, the revenue is going to get impacted. So the revenue of distribution company in these 2 months of lockdown, and if that extends, is going to create a big issue going forward in terms of tariff, because the regulatory assets will get created, and you will see in the next 2-3 years, consumers will actually have to pay for this period because the expenses continue to be the same. but ultimately the revenues is going to be impacted badly. So that's a phenomena that we will leave it there at this moment. As far as the power purchase agreements are concerned, those continue to be honored. People will have to pay fixed cost. Of course, what will happen is in the merit order, people will buy only cost, the power which is lower in variable cost. So therefore, to that extent, the high cost variable power will not be dispatched, and to that extent, there will be savings that the distribution companies will have.
Okay. Anil, there are two questions that I have, which I'm going to take over from what Himanshu said. I agree with you that hydrogen may be the fuel of the future, at the rural level, where transmission lines are very long and very expensive, do you think solar will become the key power source? Now, I say this because, and if you permit me just 1 minute, a remarkable thing happened in India in Tripura. In Tripura, for some reason, one reason or the other, 50,000 houses were put up with rooftop solar. What they discovered after putting up the solar was each solar household cost them 50,000 rupees as against grid connectivity of 2 lakhs to 5 lakh rupees. So the cost of connectivity was low. 2, it was more reliable than grid power because there was no power cutting, there was no load shedding, and that is where the villagers were very happy. 3, there were no subsidies subsequently. As a result, everyone in Northeast India wants solar for the rooftop. Your view on what's going to happen in India?
I guess there is no rocket science, RN, in this. There are several places if the distribution companies themselves start using such microgrid concepts, which is not just solar rooftop, but which is also a lot of biomass that you can use. You can also
I was going to come to that. Thank you.
You can also use a lot of hydros in the streams that run in several undulated areas where water could actually be coming and generating enough for the hamlets which are close to those areas. Now, these are all realities which have been proven. The trouble is when somebody else other than distribution company has to do it, since there are no zoning concepts, and if a private sector goes and invest, or you go and invest, or the community invests, assuming, then the trouble is you see the last mile coming from a distribution company with an announcement that your tariff will be 1 rupee because you are below poverty line customers. The private sector investment will go for a toss. Okay? So the trouble is the zoning norms which prevail in international setups where they say that once this area has been electrified by somebody and the community is buying into that, there'll be either a choice that the distribution company, which is supposed to cater to that area, either they will buy the set, lock, stock and barrel, or they will not break the line. That's called zoning norms.
Correct.
Since those zoning norms don't exist in India, most of this has not taken off. Otherwise, RN, this is one of the very good solutions for hamlets, which have never been electrified, or even if electrified on paper, don't get electricity for most of the time. This is no-brainer. In fact, the easiest that we have proven is a 50-volt DC distribution. You don't have to even look at doing, you generate DC out of solar. Okay, you first put an inverter, which we call as inverters, to convert that in AC. You don't have to do that for a hamlet because you don't have to synchronize it with grid.
Correct.
You actually buy lamps, refrigerators, fans, and all devices from railway vendors who already electrify at 50 volt. So it's there for the asking. And many hamlets, we have proven that by taking a 50 volt DC solar setup and a battery, you actually can provide this at a much competitive price. Sans this problem of zoning, this is indeed a viable and a must-do solution.
Brilliant. Now, Anil, when you were at Tata Power and even today Tata Power, both you and the present management talks about microgrids. You referred to grids, small grids, smart microgrids. Are they going to come into India? How quickly?
Bhaskar, I mentioned to you that this is no-brainer, but for the zoning issues.
Okay.
If the zoning norms are corrected, you will find a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of local people bringing this solution to hamlets as a reliable 24 into 7 solution.
Okay. There are two questions from the audience. One question is, this is a talk on energy, and you can't talk about energy without talking about oil. Where do you think oil is going to go? Okay, that's one crisis industry that we would like to know about. The second question is, what are your views about thorium-based power?
Okay, let me take the first question. I think one thing that I've learned out of my 4 decades of working, and
Yes.
I'm sure Himanshu would vouch for the same, he being a professor of repute, that commodity and exchange prices never predict in your lifetime. I have absolutely no way that I can
Yes.
predict where will it go and where will it stop. So I think people should make their own guesses. There are lots of economists who make those predictions. A lot of people do a lot of hedging. So I'm going to just say that much.
Okay.
As far as thorium-based power is concerned, Arun, this is certainly again one of the areas to explore, especially because India has a lot of deposits, and at a given point of time, one had an idea of smaller footprint, close to about 100 to 120 megawatt worth of reactors who could actually use thorium as a fuel. But the sad part is today nobody wants any nuclear plant in their backyard.
Yes.
It's become after Chernobyl and Fukushima. It's a matter which scares.
It's a bad word. Yes.
That's right. It scares people, and therefore, I don't think so much investment is coming into the R&D of these, barring a few of the organizations which at some stage had taken up a good experimentation on this aspect. But it just got stalled there.
Okay.
So my worry is, I would say not enough R&D dollars are going into this today. Maybe hydrogen perhaps will replace this, and since it comes out of a much easier way, you have to use water and perhaps use solar and wind energy to convert water through electrolysis into hydrogen and then capture it in different formats and take it as a fuel, I guess will give us a much better option, and we will not have memories of those alternate fuels.
But do you think, Anil, do you think that the renewable energy resources and sources, they're going to completely replace oil?
Well, again, I don't think so. It's so easy to answer. But of course, the attempt is so. And why not? Because if you have the storage system that makes things attractive enough for car manufacturers, for other users,
And storage prices
move
have fallen.
into, and storage prices will keep falling further.
Yes.
Then in that case, I would find that most of the oil companies themselves, you will find, will start making some of these storage options. So yes, the oil is likely to get displaced. How soon, how fast is what we'll have to wait and see.
There are two questions, Anil. While Himanshu and I understand what zoning means, there are lots of people in the audience who don't understand what zoning means in the power sector, in the energy sector. Could you simplify that for them?
Okay. You see, the Indian Electricity Act permits that such of the rural areas where people can do electrification will not need a license. Okay, it's a de-license activity. In addition, you will in any case not need to go back to regulator, or regulator will not have jurisdiction on the contracts that you will have between yourself and the community at large. Now, such areas, if you take that as a geographical area which is defined beyond the municipal limits of the neighboring areas, you can say this is a zone which will not be covered by regulators, which will not be covered by the normal distribution reach. So that's the zoning concept that we are talking about.
Okay. I know that you have to leave early, but there are two more questions. One, when you talk to hydrogen, I know that in Japan, Mirai cars have been traveling for the last 4 years using hydrogen. But hydrogen is a very difficult fuel to manage. At the rural level, at the local level, at the small town level, do you think hydrogen will be a feasible possibility?
Aaron, this statement is more from the point of view of our notion about the hydrogen bomb. I don't think so.
Okay.
You need to. I don't think you need to get there. You should also
Okay.
understand that electricity is a great slave, but a very bad
Yes.
master. So if you try and allow even electricity to become a master, it actually spares no one. Okay, so it charges you down. And similarly, I guess hydrogen also has various means in which you have to do a controlled working on that. You use hydrogen at several places. In fact, several industries use that. Power industry uses it to cool their generators. In fact, all the large generators have hydrogen cooling.
Oh,
So
wow.
we've been using that for ages. So it's not that we are not familiar with hydrogen as a medium. We are fully familiar with it, and there are fuel cells today which
Yes.
use that. There are bottles which are leak proof, which are safe, and you are able to use hydrogen. You don't have to actually. The good advantage is you don't have to pressurize it. When you don't pressurize it, does not have the desire to come to the atmosphere on its own unless you actually damage that container. So I don't think so. It's worrisome. Of course, it has to be done with all the caution and precaution that come with any fuel.
Okay.
One,
Anil, I have a personal question. So, completely kind of off what we have been talking about. There are two things the two of us share. So, I happen to be an electrical engineer as well, and both of us have worked for the Tatas. So, I worked with Tata Steel for 8.5 years in electrical operations.
Wow.
And then at some point of time, I decided to stop looking at electrical machines and start looking at human beings. Your journey has been thoroughly in this particular space. So when you look at those 40 years, when you have been so closely associated with electrical machines and things around electrical engineering, what do you make of this journey? What gives you the greatest joy?
Now, Himanshu, I must admit that we could say that we had this background of having done our engineering some 40 years back. What one has enjoyed the most is to build teams and work with fantastic set of people. So if one really recalls what's been a matter of great pleasure, it's been forming great teams and working with lovely teams and lovely set of people. So for me, 18 years of working with Tata's, 14 years of working with NTPC during its formative years, now working for last 2 years with a growth-oriented group, it's a matter of giving back to society and at the same time working with fabulous set of people. I think that's what pleasure one draws out of all these 40 years of working.
Anil, before you go, I want you to dwell on one important issue, which I want all the conversations and interactions to have. What is your wish list or what the government should do to make the energy sector more vibrant? Crucial. That is something I want.
I don't think so. I have to labor my mind in answering that question.
Brilliant.
I would clearly say they should have a single point agenda to make sure that the last mile must become benchmark compared to the global offerings. I think we have much better room to achieve so, and we have no reason why 70 years post-independence, we are still not able to give customer the desired pleasure in terms of what the customer must experience.
This would mean that the pricing for the last mile customer will change.
Well, Arun, this is not just pricing. This is the whole set of experience that I'm talking about. As I said, it's a commodity which, like any other commodity, must reach to customer. Customer must have a choice. Customer must be able to enjoy electricity 24/7. Customer must have the least recall of who's supplying the electricity. You typically, when you use your airtime, you don't have to remember unless your call drops that, my suppliers network seems to have gone bad. That's the only time that you remember. Otherwise, you just seamlessly keep enjoying your service. Electricity has got to be the same. It's exactly got to be the same.
Yes.
That you should not be able to recall who's your supplier. You should be able to constantly keep supplying quality supply, supply at demand, and supply in a competitive way. And there's no reason why we should not be able to achieve that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Anil. And I don't want you to get upset with us because we've delayed you from the next meeting. Himanshu, would you like to say something?
No, it was such a pleasure, Anil, talking to you. And I particularly like the fact that despite staying with your core sector, what you said that you remember the most is building teams. And I think this entire lesson about leadership, and that is that eventually it is your team that matters the most. So if you have managed to actually create a good team around you, you will be able to tide over any crisis. And today, as we are going through, not just India, I mean, everyone, the entire world is going through this crisis. I think these words are far more truer and they hold so much value. So thank you very much, Anil, for joining us. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you,
Himanshu.
Anil. We learned a lot. Even here in this meeting, I learned a little more.
Thank you, Arun, and thank you, Himanshu. Look forward to being physically there one of these days.
Absolutely. Good luck to have you in the campus.
Absolutely.
Same here. My cup of tea, keep it ready.
Yeah, no, and for particularly association of Dr. J.J. Irani, Deepak Atwalekar, a lot of colleagues and friends, now knowing the fact that you also have a common background. So I think it'll be great pleasure to once visit IIM Indore and of course Dr. Behti, who is a great friend. So I look forward to being at your institute once the problem gets over. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me over.
We sign off. Thank you,
Bye.
audience, for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.